Today on the show, we're talking about what really does make an author successful. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on the journey toward publication. I am Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
And I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian dystopian fiction.
And we are down two, count them, two of our other hosts today. We are still coveting your prayers for our friend Rhonda as she deals with some medical issues that she is working through. And our friend Jamie had something better to do today, apparently. So she's not here with us either.
Mm-hmm.
So we miss you, Jamie. She will be back next week. It'll be exciting because we get to critique a piece of her writing next week to finish up our Writing Groups 101 series that we have been doing. So that'll be good.
I don't know if that's exciting because I always have trouble finding meat in Jamie's writing.
Oh, really? I'll find something.
Really
you could probably find things. Yeah, you do. She's a very good writer for sure, but there's always something. So, all right. Well, we like to start every episode as usual, even with the other two that are gone. We like to start every episode with our What's Up. It is where we take a moment and share with you, our listeners, what's going on in our lives. And also we check in with our chat and see what's up with them. So Tina, I want to start with you because you're the only person here I can start with.
I get to go first.
You get to go first. Yeah.
Well, I am not at home. If you can tell, the background is different. Mm-hmm. I am in Port Orchard, Washington, visiting my mom for a couple of weeks.
What a great name, Port Orchard.
Yeah.
Sorry, the author of me is like, that'd be a cozy mystery right there. So sorry, go ahead.
Actually, there's a cozy mystery writer that lives in Port Orchard that writes stories based in Port Orchard. And if I can remember her name, I will tell you what it is, but I can't.
That's awesome.
Something Maycomer. Debbie Maycomer, maybe?
Really? Debbie Maycomer.
She lives over there.
She writes romance.
Like down the road.
She writes sweet Christian romance.
I thought it. Oh, okay. I thought it was
maybe some of her stuff is mystery. She's prolific. I mean, she's got a lot of books out. So
yeah, and they're all set in Port Orchard. The ones that I've heard about. So
I had no idea. That's exciting.
So I am the land of greatness. No, I was kidding. So I was on this plane yesterday and for 4.5 hours, and they have those screens in the back of the chairs now that you can watch movies and stuff. So I got the little headphones and I plugged them in and I was looking for something to watch, and I ended up watching Aquaman. And then I
not really your cup of tea.
Well, it wasn't bad. I found myself like picking apart the story structure.
Yeah.
So it was a good lesson in stuff. So then I slept for a while, listened to music, and then right like 15 minutes before the plane was about to land, I found master classes, all of them for free on the little screen thing. I was so mad. I could have been binging for like 4.5 hours.
Your learner input, all that. You're like, you would have been like so happy.
Like, hey, I am going to do research in the next 2 weeks. And I'm going to know exactly which master classes I am watching on the plane ride home.
That's a great idea.
So
you'll have less anxiety that way too, because I know you have a little bit of anxiety about flying. So, well, there's a little bit, and then because Tina's internet's a little bit off, there might be a little bit of a delay. So we just pray that you guys will just deal with us today. My what's up is well, I overslept today. I never oversleep. I usually get about, I don't know, up around 6:30-ish every day. And it was like 8:00 when I woke up. And even though the show was live at 10, we show up at 9. Tech issues, we do our writing, our sprinting, and there's just all kinds of stuff that we do. We always show up at 9, and I feel like I'm a hot mess today, but that's okay. And also, if you hear noise out in my mic, it's my husband power washing our house, and it's all my fault that he's doing it because I had this idea that my dad and I could just paint our house. Like we wouldn't even need Randy to help, right? Well, if we're gonna paint, we should no paint the barn. We're gonna start with the barn. Well, if we're gonna do the barn, we might as well do the house. And then, well, we can't just. I didn't even think about the fact that the house is dirty and the barn's dirty, so we had to power wash. And power washing is not like I'm thinking hose everything down. No, like it's a like an exact. Yeah. Anyway, so my poor husband had a whole new job this week. Every day he's been working on power washing and getting ready for us to paint. So, but it's gonna be great. I'm excited to make some changes around here, but Piper says her what's up, still working on her final book, still getting now final book of the series, right, Piper? You're not
I know, I was
done.
freaking out there for a minute.
Right. Still getting words most
Mhm.
days, over my target and still going strong. That's awesome.
So
Congratulations, Piper. And we have other people in the chat as well. We have Shell here this morning. Good morning, Shell. And Barbara is here as well. KR is here. Nice to see you, Katie. So yeah, so we again, we're down to just the two of us. So this is probably gonna be a short episode because look at it, it's like, oh wait, hold on, look at Katie's what's up. She says working on a short story collection. Ooh, fun.
nice.
Um and Piper says, oh yes, final book of the series, LOL. So it's only 7 minutes after 10 and we're already ready to move on to the topic. So this might be a short episode, which is fine because again, I feel like I'm a hot mess and I feel like I'm all like kind of like discombobulated. So probably the sooner we can get out of this trash fire, this trash can fire, the better, right? Dumpster fire. See, I can't even say it right.
We're dumpster phoenixes. We are not dumpster
That's
fires.
true. Rising out of
That's
the dumpster fire. Okay, so today's topic came out of a conversation between Tina and I believe is how it went. And then Tina was thought, gosh, this would be a really great newsletter topic, and she was going to write newsletter on it. And then we're like, well, this would be a good topic for the podcast. So today we're going to be talking about what makes an author successful. And if you're listening, not watching, I'm doing air quotes around successful on purpose because for lots of different reasons. So um Tina, you want to just go like you tell us what your thoughts are beginning when you first start thinking about what makes an author successful.
well, I started thinking about it because we had Jamie and I were going to do it as a topic the week that you were gone,
Oh, that's
and
what it
we didn't
was.
end up doing it. And so I had we had like several different options that we could have done, and I was sat down to start thinking about them. You know, I do this thinking thing. So um I spent a lot of time thinking about what makes an author successful, and I just kind of went off on this long philosophical like thought process about how what my success as an author kind of parallels my success, and that's not really a good word, or
Mhm.
I think maybe growth as a Christian.
Mhm.
Like I saw these like super huge parallels between the two, and I just thought, oh, I could write a whole newsletter about just that, about
Mhm.
how it parallels my role, my walk as a Christian.
Mhm. So for me, success like you and I talked about how like it changes as we go too. Like the author Jen 5 years ago had a different view of success than what author Jen view has of success right now. Why do you think that is, Tina? What makes it change like that?
Well, if you go by my little thing where I was paralleling my Christian walk, you know, when
Mhm.
you first get saved or come to know Jesus, I always like to think of it like a huge piece of paper folded up to really tiny,
Mhm.
and on that piece of paper are the things that God wants you to accomplish, like these sins He wants you to get out of your life,
Mhm.
or growth that He wants to see in your life. And it's a little tiny piece, and you work through that with Him, and He helps you clean that up, and then
Mhm.
He unfolds the paper,
Mm.
and now you see more,
Right.
and then He helps you clean that up, and then He unfolds the paper.
Mhm.
And I that like our whole life, I feel like my whole lifetime into eternity is going to be God unfolding that paper. And so,
Mhm.
like, when I first got saved, my goals for being a successful Christian, air quotes,
Mhm.
was to read my Bible and pray and go to church, but
Mhm.
and to stop doing certain things that I was doing. But as I grew, those goals changed, and
Mhm.
so every time I hit the goal changed.
Right. And then
And
as a
so then,
writer
so now my spiritual growth. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's like a total lag between us, so I'm sorry if I talk over you. Um, I totally forgot what I was saying.
So you were
But as I
comparing
grow, the goalposts change and what my idea of where I need to be changes.
correct, and same thing with you as a writer, like, our very first thing, like, our first goal was, "I gotta finish this book," right? Like, I know that when I started, I think like most writers do when they first start, is I had this book idea, and I was gonna write this book, and it was all about this book. Just one book, right? Like, you don't think of it that way, but you're thinking that way. Like, I had this one book,
Mhm.
and this book is gonna be, like, the, like, breakout book, whatever. I don't know what I actually thought, but I really was only focused on finishing that one book and writing that one book, and that is not clearly not my goal anymore, right? And so, if I had stopped at that one book, Jen from 5 years ago would have been happy, but by the time the book was in my hands, like, I was working on it, that was no longer my goal. That was no longer gonna be successful. I would not feel successful. So that's part of, like,
Right.
what we're talking about with how it moves. Um, Piper says, "I think my definition of success has changed over the years." Agreed. KR Vanderport says, "Yeah, I was telling my therapist about how I was frustrated with my lack of progress, and she said, 'Do you think that once you get this under control, you'll be perfect?'" And I was like, "Huh? Oh, yeah."
I'd
Yeah.
be like, "Huh, I'm not perfect? What?"
Yeah, perfection
So,
is, definitely a stumbling block for me as well. So once you finish that first sign of what you thought was gonna be success, or what that marker of success was, then your marker for success just automatically pushes out, correct? So after you finish the
yeah.
book, then it's what? What was it for
Well, like
you?
for me, it was to write a book. I had always written short, and I felt like I was pretty good at writing short. And I had this book, the idea, and I wanted to write it. And I had this prologue that I had been working on for years and just like tweaking it. And I
Mhm,
brought it to that first meeting that we had and found out what all the problems were. And the one of them was Rhonda's mom saying, "Well, this is full of passive voice." And I was like, "Passive voice? What the heck is that?" I didn't even know what passive voice was. And so then my goal changed to not just finish the book, but also improve as a learn what it means. Like, what are the rules? What
mhm,
are the things I don't know that I need to know to be a writer? And so there was like this dual goal of learning to be a better writer and finishing the book too. And then I got that book finished writing it. Now all of a sudden I needed to learn how to edit it and revise it because I didn't have a ton of money laying around for have someone do it for me.
mhm,
And then once I did that, I had to publish it. So there was a learning
mhm,
curve there. And then, okay, so book one is published. Now you need to learn to market it or not. Do you market it or do you wait till you have several books? So that was a decision. So, like each step along the way, there was something more to accomplish. And,
mhm,
um, and so I feel like very similar to my spiritual theory that I believe is as long as I am where I need to be right now, I'm okay. Like if as long as I'm taking care of what God has shown me on the page right now,
mm,
I'm
mhm,
okay. And that doesn't mean that I'm not walking in holiness until he unfolds the page and I say no. So like that's my philosophy of my spiritual walk. And so it's similar with my writing. I don't need to worry about if I'm success like down the road, that's not my goal right now. Down right now is what is my next goalpost? And really unsuccessful means that I just give up or I just
mhm.
quit.
Right, because what is the opposite of success, right? Is where I'm at right now the opposite of success? I would say no. Though I would not call myself successful right now, right? The opposite of success would be just quitting. That's a really good point, Tina.
Right.
Um,
And so I think there's two things about success. Like there's the where I want to be in the end and where I am right now.
mm,
It's kind of a dual success thing.
I would agree with that. For me, so for me, it was very similar. For me, it was my mind was always publishing. And I like what Piper says. She said, "Yes, first sign of success was to finish writing a whole book, then to get it published in a way that would appear similar to those on the shelves of bookstores." That was me the whole time. Like I see a lot of people putting out a lot of indie writers putting out books that they're perfectly happy with how it looks, how it's edited, how what the book cover looks like. That oh, that's good enough, and that's okay with them, and they're putting out more books and that's fine for them, but that wasn't fine for me. Like to them, I'm sure that was their sign of success. That's great. And please understand, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that my definition of success is different. It's very similar to Piper's. I wanted my book to be every bit as like book good and edited and the cover and everything as if I went through a traditional publisher, a big publishing house. And so my first thing was yes to get it published, and then once I was published, again success changed for me. I'm like, all right, I'm published, but I'm not making any money, so and
Hmm.
I had all these other books burning inside of me. So for me, writing more books wasn't part of like success. That was just I have to do it. And if you're a writer, you understand that. Like I just have to get it out of these books out of me. But for me, the next level of success is to make a living at this. My husband and I talked a few years ago about this being our retirement, like me trying to get to a point where he could retire comfortably, and um so I focus a lot now on marketing and advertising along with trying to get my book written as well, which I didn't care about that stuff at the beginning. You know what I mean? At the beginning, I thought my book's just going to sell. I'll put it out there and everyone's going to want to read it. Right. Um, so again, like you said, right now I have one like goal and then I have the long term, and it's wherever I decide to attach that success, the success tag to it. But do you think that when you get to the next level, like, will I ever be able to consider myself successful? This is a question that I'm kind of been playing around with in my mind after we've had this discussion to begin with. Like, will I ever see myself successful? Like, will I always be like trying to compete or trying to do the next level? I don't know.
I don't know either. Like I wish we had like somebody like I don't know, someone like really successful, like a household
And
name successful,
and ask if
and
they feel like
ask
they're
them, do they
successful.
feel that they're successful or do they keep working to the next success?
Because here's
I
a great
just watched a documentary about this singer, Shania Twain, and like how her goal line changed like throughout her
Mhm.
career. Her
Mhm.
like when she was young, her idea of success was to get a record label, to get
Mhm.
signed. And then she made it. She won like every the one year at the Grammy, she won like every award that she was put up for.
Mhm.
So there was really nowhere for her to go
Right.
in the United States in the country music genre.
Mhm.
She had done it all. And she said, "Well, now I want to be international. I want to cross over into pop." Like so she was very successful, but she wasn't
Mhm.
happy.
Mhm.
She wanted to change the goal and go for international, and so I kind of feel like that might happen.
Mhm.
If we were making millions of dollars on our books, maybe we'd want to go into another genre, or maybe we'd want to like there's got to be a way to level up, right?
Mhm. When you brought up like bringing someone in who is very successful in my genre, if you read my genre, you know who Karen Kingsbury is. You know who Francine Rivers are. Those are probably the two of the titans in the Christian romance. But if you try to do Facebook advertising and you try to target another author, you cannot find them as targets in Facebook because Facebook doesn't acknowledge them as being successful enough to warrant being labeled as a target, which blows my mind because they are, I mean, first of all, they're best-selling authors. Both of them are. And other than the fact that, like, I don't know who I would target in my genre if it
Yeah.
wouldn't like, if I can't target those 2. So, again so that brings up another thing
It could
too.
also I'm sorry, it could also be, because they're Christian authors, and if you are looking for Christian topics, you can't find
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
They've removed all religious things from that
It's very,
targeting.
very possible. But that brings up
Yeah.
another topic as well, is that, like, am I labeling my success based on my own personal goals and what I see as success, or am I letting the world or other people around me also determine what is success? So I shared this before in the podcast, but I've had people come up to me and literally ask me what my income is. Like, I would never go up to someone at my church that is a doctor or a teacher or, a mechanic. I would never go up to them and say, Well, how much money are you making?" As if, like, to justify, is this really a job?" Like, and that's happened to me
Yeah.
on more than one occasion. And so, as much as I wanna be like, "Ugh, I don't care what they think," there is a little bit of me that kind of, like, I think that when I'm trying to get to these next goals financially, I think there's a little bit of me that's like, "I'll show them," kind of an attitude,
Yeah.
which is not
Yeah, I can
and
see
it's not
that.
Christ-like. I know that it's not Christ-like, and I try not to be, but I'm just being very transparent. I don't really set out to be like, "Imma show them," but there's something in me, a little bit of rebellion in me that I think works hard because I wanna prove other people wrong.
Well, and sometimes that's what it takes to get there. Like, you have to let that little bit of wanting to compete or wanting to, show people that you can do it is the motivation it takes for you to get there.
Mhm. KR says, maybe we don't think we're successful when we reach what used to be our goalpost because we've grown so much at that point that it's not unreachable anymore. Yes. And I think that's a really
Yeah.
good point. Um, and I don't think that that's a bad thing, right? I think that that's a very good thing that we would constantly be pushing the goalpost out. Because if we go back to what Tina was saying about how it
Yeah.
mirrors her spiritual walk, is that we don't want to stay in the same place in our spiritual walk. And for me, my job as a writer is so attached to my spiritual walk because I not only write romance, I write Christian romance. In my Christian romance, the goal is to tell not only a love story, but God's story, to show God's story in it. That, like, it's just such a part of my spiritual walk as well that, yeah,
Mhm.
I don't wanna just stay complacent at where I'm at right now, you know?
It's the same for me because I'm a Bible study teacher,
Mhm,
and so there's these concepts that people, think they understand, but they really don't understand the biblical concept of them, and so,
mhm,
like, it's I mean, you can tell I wanted to teach people what grace really meant.
mhm,
I had run into so many people that didn't understand what grace was, or how forgiveness works, or how to have unshakable faith. And so then, like, it's the teacher in me, and it's the things that I'm learning that I then teach that then end up in my books. So it's all interconnected. And if I
yes.
stop growing spiritually, I don't know what I would write about. Like, what's
Agreed.
the next thing that I'm going to write about? Yeah.
Yes, because if I'm not
Yeah.
growing spiritually, I don't think my characters are gonna grow spiritually. Do you know what I'm saying? And I've tried writing books,
Hmm.
that were more mainstream. I had some goals of, like, maybe trying to do a Hallmark movie or whatever, and I just couldn't do it. Like, I didn't enjoy it, and I'm just like, "This is just not who am. It's not the writer I am, it's
Hmm.
not who God intends me to be." But KR says, "Succeed out of spite." Yes,
That's
agreed.
right.
And Piper says, "Is that competition, Jen? Is that a strength? Is she mean by strength finders? Is
Yes,
that
it
what?"
is.
No,
It
competition
is.
is my dead last. I'm pretty sure I have it around here somewhere. I'm pretty sure it's like my 32nd or whatever the dead last one is. I don't have a competitive bone generally in my body. Um,
But it
when
probably comes out of some other strength that
Probably,
has a
I'm sure
similar
there's
thread to competition.
yeah, maybe because If when I played softball, I was happy sitting on the bench. I just glad I was on the team. I was just cheering. I enjoyed cheering everybody else on. Like if we play a sport or a game, I want everyone to win. That's just who I am. I am not competitive. I don't care if I ever win
Neither
a
am
game
I.
or anything. But this is a little different. But all right, so we kind of touched on what the world labels as success, but these are some of the things we came up with that the world labels as success: income level, number of books sold, your rankings, the New York Times or the USA Today bestsellers lists, if you become a household name. But, um, and I think that when I started off, these things might have been goals that I maybe didn't even verbalize. And maybe there's still a little part of me that would be like excited for any of these things to happen. Income level, for sure, only because I want my husband to be able to retire. Um,
Same.
number of books sold, that goes along with income level. Like I don't really go around counting how many books I've sold, though. Yeah, I it's in if you count my freebies, my books are in the thousands. Thousands and thousands of people have read my books, which is like exciting that many people like saw what I wrote. Like it's just crazy to me. Um, but the rankings, like it shouldn't matter. It really truly doesn't, but I'll be honest, if I ended up on the USA Today list, I would not be upset. I would there
Neither
would be
would
a little bit
I.
of me that would have like a woohoo moment, but like again, let's say it started happening repeatedly. Let's say I'm a Karen Kingsbury or I am a oh, what are some other ones? Like a Debbie May Comer. Like it would become like
Isn't there
everything
like a
else.
Joanne Carroll or something like that? It's
I don't know that name, but
with a
uh,
K.
but
Okay, never mind.
oh, Jan Karen.
Jan Karen.
The
I
Mitford
was
series.
close.
Yeah. So, like, it would become old hat just like everything else. I hate to tell you this, people, but, like, the things that the world sets up as success, they're not that exciting once you actually get there. Because I listed up all those things, but there's other things that the world like, getting published. Yay! And then it's done, right? Like, it's an empty
hmm
feeling because we our self-worth is not found in our success, and Piper said something a little bit earlier. She said a bunch of things. So if you're listening, you're gonna want to come back to the YouTube channel and read all of the comments. Some great advice in here. But Piper says, I think maybe I have success and contentment wrapped up together. And I don't know that's a bad thing because I think that
I think it's a good thing.
yeah, our self-worth is not based on our success or on what the world thinks is successful, right? We find our identity elsewhere. So um
Man, my identity is in Christ.
agreed.
Yeah.
And we have to always remember too that our successes, but also our failures as a writer are separate from our opinion of ourselves. There will be failures too. I mean, you're going to hit successes and you may not even feel like they're successes anymore. Just like KR pointed out that once you get there, you've grown so much that it's no longer like a benchmark for you. But there will be failures and you have to understand that that doesn't define who you are. It is just a bump in the road of what you do, not who you are.
And
Um,
maybe it's my number one learning talking, but I see failures as opportunities.
yeah.
Because now, okay, I failed. Why did I fail? Let's learn first why I failed and learn how to fix it and learn what to do to be better next time. And that learning process is exciting for me. So,
Mhm.
while I don't want to fail, once I have, they're kind of um, exciting. It's exciting to like grow and learn something.
Right. Agreed. Proverbs 16:3 says, "Commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established." Whether you write Christian work or you're just a Christian who writes, like you still need to lay that at the feet of Jesus. Like that needs to be I've always said, and we were gonna have t-shirts made, but I've always said like Jesus, coffee, write, repeat. And so like he has to be at the forefront of everything you do, whether you're writing Christian works or you're just a Christian who writes. If you don't do that first, then you're never going to be successful in the world's eyes or in your own. You're always going to feel lacking because Matthew 16:26 says, for what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? So it's so much more important that you put your eyes towards Christ and understand that that's where your identity is found than you go looking elsewhere.
Hmm. And I
And
also put,
okay,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "Whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God." And so,
Mm,
if I'm writing with that motivation to glorify Him,
mhm,
then if I glorify Him, that is success.
mhm. And the favorite verse that I brought to the table for this podcast today comes from Ecclesiastes. And I said to you guys when we were like in our planning meeting, I'm like, I have a love hate relationship with Ecclesiastes. And because so many people will go in and find the good, encouraging scripture and not read the whole book, or they'll read part of it and like, this is depressing, and they'll stop reading it. It's a very much a journey like this when you're reading Ecclesiastes. So I encourage you, if you haven't read it, go read it, but read the entire book and have some commentary with it, or a study guide or something, because it is very insightful, but it can also be like ugh. But the Ecclesiastes 3 says, "For a dream comes with much business, and a fool's voice with many words." And Jamie's like, I don't understand. And so I explained it to her, like, for me, it's like, you want to reach your dreams, there's a lot of work to be done. Like, you're going to reach your dreams by working for them. For a dream comes with much business. Yeah, you have a lot of work to do, and that's how dreams are achieved. Like, I have a dream of being a full-time author that can have a sustainable income. Well, that's a lot of work. That's writing, that's advertising, and that's marketing, things that I don't enjoy, but I'm putting the work in because that's my dream, is to have that. And then the second half says, a fool's voice with many a fool's voice with many words, meaning a fool is the one that talks about it all the time. All the gab, gab, gab. Everybody that comes to me and says, well, how much money are you making? They're just talking about it. They're not out there trying to be a writer. They're not out there putting the work in. They're just out there
Hmm.
talk, 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 talk. And so they're the fool. I'm the one with the dream, and I'm putting the work in. And I believe that for all of our listeners is that if you're catching us for the first time and in your mind, you're like, well, I'm going to put this book out and God will just make it sell. He could. He could, but his scripture right here tells you that it comes with much business. Like, he expects you to put the
Hmm.
work in. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help you do that. And here to help you and to encourage you to do that and to help inform you on how to do that. And so again, success is fluid, right? I guess we could wrap it up now. Um, it's based on your goals, and it's individual. My idea of success is nothing like Tina's, and vice versa. And I'm sure that everyone listening to this has a little bit different idea of what success is. And it's going to be fluid. It's going to change and it's going to move. And that's okay, because that's how your spiritual life will be as well.
Amen.
Any other thoughts, Tina?
I had one and then it flew, so it
Because I
must not have
talk so
been.
much.
No, it's
Sorry.
probably just what God didn't want me to say it. So,
Well, then, without any further ado, it's time for us to move on to the feeding of the backs. So if you're new here, this is what we call our feedback time. Here's how it works for the podcast. We submit a piece of raw, fresh, unedited writing. What we do is we get together, like I told you at the beginning of the episode, at 9 o'clock, and we do our little business and work that we have to do. And then we set a timer for 15 minutes and we write to the same prompt. And then we don't edit it. We don't look at it again until we bring it here and we read it live, because we are gluttons for punishment, apparently. Because even as I'm saying this out loud, that's a pretty scary thing. We do it every single week. It's just what we do. Um, and then so because it's not edited, we don't give criticism. We only give positive and encouraging feedback on what was shared. If you want to see criticism, you can go back to we have 2 episodes already about it recently. And next week, we're going to be also critiquing a piece of Jamie's writing. So, one last thing from KR. I think I'm a little afraid to be satisfied or happy with who I am or what I do now, because I think I'll stop trying to grow. That's interesting. Huh, I never thought about it being that way, out of a fear thing. We might have to pick that up
there's
later
a
in the Facebook group, KR. That's a topic to discuss, the fear of
yeah,
it. So,
because there's this whole thing about growth and fixed mindset. that
Mm.
we could have a long discussion about.
So if you're not in our Facebook group, you're going to want to go over there and join it. The link to join is in the show notes for this show. All right, Tina, I'm going to have you go first since there's just the two of us. And will you
Okay.
share with us what the prompt is and then share your piece?
The prompt was the title of Sign of the Invisible Creek. So I
The
never got
invisible
to my,
I'm sorry, sign of the invisible creek. I was just saying it out loud again.
yeah, I never really got to what my whole idea for the prompt because the setup took too long and I
I was
ran out of time.
I was the same way, except for my timer, the volume was turned down on it, so I didn't hear it. So I'll be honest, I got like another minute or two, I think, of writing. Um, but I think I got to it. So, but all right, let's hear what you got though.
All right.
Are you writing in the
The
same
rain would have
world?
been easy.
Are you writing in the
I
same
am
world?
exploring something I want to put in my book, but it's not in that world. I'm just
Oh,
exploring ideas.
okay, great.
Okay. The rain would have been easier to take if it were coming down in sheets, but instead it came in fits and spurts, spitting at Marie at
Mm,
unexpected moments.
mm,
She longed to sit down under a tree and cry, but it would do nothing to remedy her situation. She knew, because that's what she'd done for the last 3 days. The gash in her leg had scabbed over, and the skin around it was red and puffy. Though she'd been diligent about cleaning it, the only water available to her was from the bog the plane had crashed in. She tried unsuccessfully to push the picture of the wreck from her mind. A battered and broken hull with only one wing, no tail, and with the captain's body lying half in, half out of the cockpit window, his dead eyes staring into the forest that surrounded them. It had taken her 3 tries to pull his body back into the plane in order to search his pockets for anything useful. She found a lighter, one of those square decorative ones with an eagle engraved on it and a phrase in Latin she didn't know.
mm,
It had probably saved her life once she climbed out of the water and found a place to build a fire. On his wrist, she'd found one of those big macho watches with all the fancy dials. She'd whispered a request for forgiveness to God for all the times she'd judged the type of man who wore them. It
mhm,
had a compass and a blade. Bonus, the band was made of paracord, which Marie knew could be a lifesaver to someone lost in the wilderness. That was a week ago, and though she'd been told to always stay put when lost so the rescuers could find her, Marie knew the chances of there being rescuers were close to nothing. Now she was far from any water source, and her tongue burned for a drink. She kept holding her head back and mouth open, hoping to catch enough rain to quench it, but it was a hopeless exercise. Please, could you just send me a downpour? I could use a little help, she said. That's when the skies opened up and the heavens declared their sovereignty.
mm.
That's
Oh,
it.
so good. That last line, Tina. That last line was gold. The heavens opened up and declared their sovereignty. Great. Like I love that. First of all,
Thanks.
I don't know if you realize that. You probably do realize it. You framed this story. It was a sprint in 15 minutes and you framed it. For anyone who doesn't know, we talked about that in an earlier podcast, but framing is where you start with something and you end with the same thing, but like in a different way. You can frame an entire novel, you can frame scenes, like so frame a chapter. That was so cool that you were able to frame something in 15 minutes, girl. So
Yeah,
good.
I looked down and I saw I only had a minute left, and so there was some other stuff I wanted to put in there. I'm like, nope, I got to end this. So I put
Yeah.
the last line in there, and yeah,
Oh,
I really enjoyed that.
so great. I love first of all, so like my first piece of like not meat, bread, I guess, of this was going to be about the rain and then you framed it like so it makes this even better. But I love your description and how she said that the sheets of rain would have been like preferable to the spurts and like immediately I'm in the story because I'm like why would that be and then you talk about her wound and I'm like oh and no clean water and just well done. Like, so good.
Thanks.
Like, and her talking about the supplies, like, none of it felt telly. It all was showy. You showed us everything. I keep hitting this. I'm really sorry. I don't know what I did to my microphone today. So, yeah, well done, Tina. Just
Thanks.
loved it. So,
I appreciate that.
all right. Well,
Now we
mine
get to listen to
is,
yours.
uh, yeah. So mine is from the world I've been writing in, and like I said, I got an extra minute or two. So, Cade knelt on his hands and knees next to the creek and cupped his hand through the icy cold stream. He brought the cupped water to his mouth, relishing the shock of the cold water on his dry lips, not caring that half of the water trickled down his arm and onto his shirt. If he'd had his druthers, he'd plunge right into the creek, boots and all. The weather was scorching hot, and a swim sounded fine to him right then. But there was still work to do, and there weren't many days left before the drive. He repeated this until he completely saturated his thirst, then sat back and rested his back against a boulder sticking out of the bank. No longer consumed with thirst, he allowed himself a moment of rest, grateful for the shade of the old oak that flourished next to the creek. Its long roots stretched out toward the rushing water, even sticking out of the bank visibly in some areas, as if it had no more patience for a drink than Cade had just lacked. It isn't very invisible, is it? Cade nearly jumped out of his skin at the sound of Colleen's voice so close to him. His reaction made her laugh, a melodic, heartfelt laugh that caused a completely different reaction to Cade's skin. He quickly rubbed his hands up and down his arms, willing the goosebumps away. I didn't hear you coming, he said lamely. She motioned her head toward the creek. It's hard to hear over the sound of Ol Invisible there. Cade cocked his head. Ol Invisible? She nodded. That's its name, Invisible Creek, though I haven't a clue why it's named that. She laughed again, a quieter, almost sad laugh. That's why you're helping me, right? To get your hands on this water? As she stood over him, the sun parted from the clouds and a ray of light filtered through the canopy of leaves overhead and embraced her silhouette in a softness Kate assumed only the angels could compete with. Though he had his doubts, even they held the same delicate beauty he saw in Colleen. And it was then that he knew that the water supply on her land had absolutely nothing to do with why he was helping her.
Ooh, I love that.
Thanks.
There like when you first started talking about the creek and the tree, like
Mhm.
that scripture from the Bible about being planted by
Uh-huh.
streams of living water, like totally conjured that up for me. And
Yep.
then like the the sunlight and the way that it like enveloped her and you described all that.
Mhm.
But like the kicker was that last line, like was suddenly he realized that the water supply had nothing to do.
Mhm.
Like that was just golden.
Thank
Great
you.
work.
So this is
I
why
love that whole
I love sprinting is because I had never even thought about this scene at all. Like I've been trying to explain in the chapters like why water was important, and the land that had the water supply was everybody wanted that land, and like, and it just felt so telly. And I feel like this, of course, it's not done. And yeah, I said water and cupped about 70 times in the in the first paragraph. So like it needs to be fixed. And but
That's a
I was
long paragraph, 70 times.
yeah. I was 100% thinking about that scripture as I wrote that part too. So I'll probably stop there and have him recall the scripture as well, because again, like I'm writing him, and so yeah, and so I never would have thought about this, but it'll be I won't go straight to the fact that he thinks she's pretty. You know what I mean? Like I will like get there slower. But yeah, I think that I
Yeah,
love that I have this chapter that like slows things down. You got to have those. You can't constantly have
yeah.
action happening. It's a chapter that slows things down and will hopefully give more insight into the conflict of like everybody's after the water supply in her land, and and now he realizes that she thinks he is too, and blah blah blah. So
And it's gonna make your romance readers who love that juicy, like, feelings stuff
yeah,
really happy.
yeah. So we didn't go to the chat at all. So let's go there, talk about your stuff too. Shell says, so fantastic, Tina. Agree with Jen and great first line. Yes. Yes, framing, she said. Piper says that was great. Tina wanted her to start sucking on leaves to get something to drink. LOL. KR says, excellent
Hey,
work,
that's a good
Tina.
idea.
I love the way you did an info dump, but revealed things a bit by bit. Yes. And then Piper says, oh, I
Thanks.
love that last line. And then Shell says, so good, Jen. Great description and last line. Thank you very much. KR says, awesome, Jen. I love the relatableness of him spilling the water. I also love how she's like, oh, you only want the land, but we're in his head and he's basically writing an ode to her beauty. Yes, oh, I have goosebumps now. That's what I was hoping for, KR. Thank you. Was it like you show when you choose point of view, right? I show and let you see what she's thinking, but we're inside him and he's not going to let her know what he's thinking. So we know the truth. And as readers, we're like, no, tell her the truth. No, don't let her think that, So thank you. I appreciate that. Good
Yeah.
feedback, guys.
Totally
So
sets up conflict and tension and everything else.
there's all right. So I'm a fan of the um, writers thesauruses, writers helping writers. They're thesauruses. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. I have a couple of them, and of course I wouldn't have them handy because I didn't know I was going to mention
Yeah,
them.
like there's the emotion thesaurus
Yes,
and
yes. Let me just
yeah.
check for a second. But yeah. Here's one, the emotion thesaurus. They're candy, especially when you get stuck. So like I know that my author needs to be in denial, and so I open up to denial, and it gives you all these different physical signs, internal sensations. Like physical signs are verbal disagreement, backing away, vigorous head shaking. Internal sensations are mouth going dry, a lump forming in one's throat. Anyways, like that, sometimes it helps you just to read through the whole list before you're going to write that scene, just to get your head in the right
Yeah.
space, right? Well, they have a new one out that's on conflict. And I
Oh,
love, yeah, I think it might be good. I think might order it. You can get it online as well. You can join their organization or their online whatever, where you get all of them online. But there's something for me when I'm going to go, like say to Panera or somewhere else, right? And I just take this with me. And again, before I write the scene and I know what I'm looking for in the scene, if I just read through it, it's like really great. We should see about getting one of them on the podcast. I wonder if that would be cool. Piper says,
yeah.
ooh, I
I
have
have
several
a
of those on my Kindle app that I turn to frequently to help phrase things. And KR says it's
yeah.
cool. So yeah, those are great.
I have it on
Also,
I have them on my Kindle too, and they're pretty affordable on
they are
Kindle
very,
if
yes,
you're a broke author.
I agree. They are very affordable. Speaking of affordable, if you like sprinting or you like what we do, we have put a book out. It's a simple book, and 100% of the proceeds go right back into the podcast to help support it. But it's 30 days of writing sprint prompts, an instructional workbook to help you establish a daily writing habit. So it's available on Amazon in print form for $9.99, I think, which for a workbook, not bad. So, and you'd be helping out the podcast. So take a look at that.
Maybe you could read some of our sprints from way back when we weren't as good at it.
Yes, and we've included them with the edit with all the mistakes. Like you can see
Yeah.
all the mistakes in it. We did screenshots so that you guys could see that. We did not fix them up. And yeah, it's very, very cool. So the link for purchasing that is also in the show notes. So all right,
Awesome.
so the next thing we'd like to do before we go is we're going to do a what's next. So this is when we check in to tell you what is going to happen in the next week, try to keep ourselves accountable to each other. So Tina, what's next for you?
Well, I'm here at my mom's, so I really don't know what she has planned for me. I'm assuming she wants me to help her in the garden and stuff like that. And I'm going to try to write while I'm here. We'll see how that goes. And I still have paperback copies, signed paperback copies for sale on my website, ChristinaCatane.com, if anyone would like to purchase them while I still have them. So I have a box of paperbacks left over from camp meeting, and I'm just going to keep them on the website until they sell. So
Awesome.
that's what's next for me.
All right. Well, I am still diving headfirst into advertising and some marketing and learning some lessons and having some successes. Haha, successes. And it started off with a lot of failures at first. It's been a learning curve, but I also know that the best marketing tool you can do is to write your next book. And so I am still working through the edits of book 4, but now I have to go back after last week's episode where I got the good critiques from you guys. I have to go back and make some corrections on chapters I had already like checked off as done and ready to go to publish. So I got to go back in and work on that. So that's kind of put a stop on it for me. It's a mental block now because I know I have to go back and do something that I thought was done. And so I just got to get over it and go do that. So,
But
be
it's going to
praying
be
for me.
better for it.
It
Like you're
is.
going to have the end product will be better because you
It
did
for
that.
sure will be. I know for sure it
Yeah.
will be. So I need to go to a hotel room like you did. Like you just were there for your flight, but I need to go like away by myself and have no distractions. That's what I need. But I'm also going to be painting my house this week, so we'll see how all this fits in. So,
Yeah,
all
I like
right.
to go to the camper sometimes by myself and just stay out
Mm,
there when there's nobody there. It's a whole different place when it's not camp
I
meeting or a
know.
holiday.
I know. I need to get down to the
It's so
camper.
quiet.
So, all right.
Mhm.
Well, if there is nothing else, we thank you all for being here. We hope you join us next week as well, when we're going to do a critique of a piece of Jamie's writing. And also, we'd love to see you guys in our Facebook group. So until next week, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye now.
Bye.